When I turned 50 and ran 15:01, I had 5 other 50-year-olds on my team who broke 16 minutes for 5K that year. It's not impossible to run fast. It's impossible to run fast if you train incorrectly.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who thinks the more toppings on a pizza, the better, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 112 of the Running for Real podcast. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today. If this is your 112th, welcome back. Thank you so much for being so loyal and just so wonderful. You guys are the best. Last week, we got to know Stephen Session, who's probably one of the best masters sprinters in the country. He's the founder of Zero Shoes and also someone who probably made you laugh a few times. We talk about barefoot running, included that dreaded question of transitioning, and were you shocked by what he told us? I really was. And if you missed it, be sure to go back and check that one out, or subscribe if you haven't already so you can make sure they come directly to you. I have a bonus episode coming very soon that you are not going to want to miss. Trust me on that one. Today's interview, okay, this kind of annoys me. Not the guest, he's wonderful, but the fact that I've kept this from you for so long, I'm just annoyed at myself for doing that. I recorded this episode almost a year and a half ago. Yep, that long ago, and it's been sitting here ever since. Why, you ask? Well, because it was part of another series I intended to do before Bailey was born, but this time I only got halfway through, and when she came early, it just sat there. So it sat and sat until now. I decided it was time to stop telling myself that I was going to try and record 3 more and just share it with you already. So today we have Pete Magill, who I've interviewed before, but today's episode is a bit of a twist. This episode is focused primarily on running faster in the 5K, and a lot of it is focused on masters athletes. I know many of you are masters athletes, and you feel like some of the stuff we do isn't particularly directed towards you. Now, Pete is very knowledgeable and has written a lot of books that help runners. They're all bestsellers. And I know now is a marathon racing time, but it's not for everyone. And sometimes it can feel like if you aren't a marathoner, you're not a real runner, which is just not true at all. So let's dive into the 5K today. And even if you are a marathoner, this actually could be really good for you too. So let me take a minute to thank our wonderful sponsors and we will go meet Pete. This episode is sponsored by Aftershokz, the award-winning headphone brand, best known for its open-ear listening experience, powered by patented best-in-class bone conduction technology. Aftershokz headphones sit outside your ear so you can hear your music and your surroundings. I know. Aftershokz is a must-have for runners, providing the ultimate level of safety and comfort without compromising sound quality. To learn more and save $50 on Aftershokz endurance bundles, visit tina.aftershokz.com. That's tina.aftershokz.com. This podcast is brought to you by NewKneeShop.com. Don't let knee pain help you from completing your long runs or worse, sidelining you altogether. New Knee is designed specifically to relieve that dreaded runner's knee pain. Unlike a typical knee sleeve, New Knee relieves the pressure at the source of the pain. And the research reveals if you get the pressure away, you get the pain away. Runners from coast to coast are getting instant relief with New Knee, and New Knee can help you get back to running without knee pain. Use code Tina Muir at newkneeshop.com. That's NUNEESHOP.com for a 20% discount. Pete, thank you so much for joining me on this 5K series. I am really excited to talk to you today. We always have a good conversation, so welcome to the Running for Real podcast.
And thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, you are always obviously on my list of people to have on here, and especially when it comes to the 5K. You have a lot of knowledge in that area, but let's kind of go backwards a step and kind of get to a more general starting point. So you are the author of Born Again Runner. You have been a 5-time Masters Cross Country Runner of the Year, and if this is correct, you are the fastest ever American distance runner over 50 in the 5K and the 10K. Is that correct?
It is correct, although in the record books, Sean Wade now has a 15:01.4, which is the official American record now for the 5K. Although I ran 15:01.3.
Oh, no.
I didn't get the record certified. So I'm technically the fastest. So Sean can make a good argument that he's got me.
It's okay. I think either way, listeners are just going to be as impressed, absolutely amazed by that. Either way, whether you're a record holder or not. But let's start with.
Well, I've got age 55 now too. I ran 15:42.
Great. Well done for that one. And obviously inspiring for anyone listening right now who's thinking, whoa, I couldn't even dream of running that fast, let alone running it like above 55. So well done for that. And firstly, tell us about the book. I have a previous podcast with you, and there will be links to it in the PDF. But we talked about your book, Born Again Runner. So just for anyone who maybe did miss that interview, what does that mean, Born Again Runner?
Well, Born Again Runner was actually my second book. And for me, it talked about my journey from being a very out of shape person in my 30s, out of shape to the point I was a heavy smoker, heavy drinker, other substance abuse, non-performance enhancing substance abuse user who decided to put my Nikes back on and head out the door and reclaim fitness and reclaim my life. And that's what I did. That's how I got into masters running. I got into it for my health. I didn't get into it to run fast times and do podcasts like this. But after I got in, it was a natural progression for me. I'd been a writer in my 30s. I was a screenwriter in Hollywood. And I went on to writing in this field. I was a columnist for Running Times for 5 years, written for Competitor, Runner's World, etc. My first book was called Build Your Running Body, which has a lot to do with the things we're going to talk about today, because that's my philosophy of running is you build the body you need to run races. You don't focus so much on how long the race is. You focus on what kind of a body you need to run that race. And that's basically what I've been doing for the past 16 years now, 17 years. I've been building a body that I can run with.
That's great. And I'm looking forward to diving into this more. So the main reason I wanted to bring you on today was because I wanted you to be here to kind of smash this myth that 5Ks are pointless for older or masters runners because they don't have any speed. So firstly, why is that not the case?
Well, firstly, that's not the case because that's physiologically, it's ridiculous to say masters runners don't have speed. What masters runners don't have is we don't quite have the nervous system we had in our 20s. That's why the top sprinters in the world are in their 20s. Some can barely segue into their 30s, although you see what Usain Bolt ran up against when he tried that.
Yep.
So you don't have the nervous system. No, you're not going to sprint your fastest 100 ever. But very few people sprint the fastest 100 ever in the 5K. The problem a lot of masters runners have coming to the 5K over age 40 is they still think of it as a distance run and they still want to train for it like a distance runner. And the 5K, in fact, uses a lot of muscle fibers. We have fast twitch fibers, which are for, those sprinter fibers. We have intermediate fibers, which are like 800 meter, 1500 meter guy fibers. And we have slow twitch fibers, which are the ones we use every day we go out on our distance runs. Well, the 5K uses a lot of those intermediate and faster twitch fibers. And here's the secret for masters, guys. You got to train those intermediate and fast twitch fibers if you want to have what we generally call speed. Most runners don't train them. They don't train them accurately. And then they go, hey, I don't have any speed. I use an analogy. I may have used it when we talked before. And I talk about a farmer who goes out to a field and he plants the field one day and then he waters a third of it. And the next day he goes out to his field and he waters the same third of it. And the next day he goes out again and he waters the same third of it. And after he continues to do this for a while, a third of his field is growing and the rest of his field isn't growing. And he goes, what the heck is wrong? Well, what's wrong is you're only watering a third of your field.
Mm-hmm.
Too many masters runners only water a third of their field. They only train those slow twitch muscle fibers. And then they wonder why the heck they aren't fast anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to train them. You got to water the whole field.
Okay, so then let's kind of go into that. When you say that, watering the whole field, when you say you got to train these intermediate and fast twitch fibers, what does that involve?
Well, okay, it involves a few different things. First of all, let's get one thing straight. The 5K is not a distance when you're training. I mean, I know it's 3.1 miles. It is a distance. But it's not about, well, it's 3.1 miles, so I should run a certain amount of miles. It's a certain effort for a certain period of time. That time is different for a 15-minute 5K runner. It's different for a 25-minute 5K runner. But what isn't different is that you will use these same muscle fibers. So you want to train every muscle fiber you have, the maximum amount you can train it and get away with it. Okay? So for the 5K uses probably more muscle fibers at an endurance level than any other race. That's why I love this race, because it involves so much variety to train. So for your slow twitch fibers, you train the distance. You go out, you do the long slogs, you train the distance. For increasing the ability of those slow twitch fibers to function at a high level, like you'll need them in the 5K, and also to start training those intermediate, training up to like 50% of your intermediate fibers, you do tempo. Okay, tempo work, because it's a harder pace and takes more, you need to produce more force to maintain that pace. You have to recruit, which is a fancy sciencey word for use. You have to recruit more of these intermediate fibers. Tempo does that. The pace you run, tempo does that.
Can I just ask, with the tempo, how far of a tempo are we talking here?
Well, now, it depends. Tempo is one of the most widely practiced workouts we have, and it's the most widely misused workout we have. People will run tempo. They'll go out and they'll run 4 miles as hard as they can and go, I did a 4-mile tempo run. Or they'll go out and run at a kind of elevated pace for 60 minutes and go, I did a 60-minute tempo run. So it depends how fast you're running. True tempo, as defined by Coach Jack Daniels, is the pace you could run for 60 minutes all out. The pace I like to run tempo at is about half marathon pace. Tempo can also be run all the way up to marathon pace. Now, why do I make those three, or why do I point out those three different paces? Because the amount of time you spend at each differs. If you're going half marathon pace, about 20 minutes is what you need to do to get full benefit. If you're running marathon pace, about 30 minutes is what you need to do to get full benefit. If you're doing 60 minutes, or the pace you could run for 60 minutes, you can do about 15 to 20 minutes, but you're best if you break it up into intervals. Those are what are called cruise intervals. So go out and do 2 times 10 minutes at cruise interval pace. It's very important you bring this up because we're talking about masters running here. Masters runners, don't ever run more than you need to run in order to get the benefit you're after. Because the big thing with us masters guys is it takes us longer to recover. You can't go out and just burn it like you did as a kid and think, I'm going to get better because I ran more. No, you do the exact amount that will give you the benefit you're looking for and no more. So 15 to 20 minutes if your tempo is at what you could run for 60 minutes, about 20 minutes if your tempo is at half marathon pace, up to 30 minutes if it's at marathon pace. The slower you get, the easier you'll be able to recover from that the next day. The faster it is, the more intense work you'll get. So it's kind of a trade-off. And one other thing I wanted to say, going back to where we were. So tempo for that, but tempo will only use about 50% of your intermediate fibers. In a 5K, you'll use about 85% of them. Okay, so that's where you have to throw in VO2 max workouts too, because VO2 max workouts, once again, a fancy name. Guess what is about 95% VO2 max, which is the absolute perfect effort level to train to improve both VO2 max and all the fibers you'll use at 5K pace. If you guessed 5K pace, you win the prize. So when we say VO2 max training, basically we're saying train at your 5K pace, and you'll train the rest of those fibers you need.
Okay, great. Thank you. Really helpful, and lots of, specific advice there that people can actually take and use and put it into practice for their, 5K training. And obviously we are going to recommend that someone finds a plan. You're going to have some options here for people to use themselves if they want to find out more. But you mentioned about masters, taking longer to recover. How else do masters runners need to train differently compared to maybe younger years?
I'm going to say something here which will seem very simple on the surface, but which is quite possibly the hardest thing masters runners come up against when they're dealing with training. There's really, outside of the fact that it takes a little bit longer to recover. When we were young, you ran a hard workout on Monday, a hard workout on Wednesday, and you might race on Saturday. Okay? As a masters runner, you can run hard on Monday, hard on Thursday, and then you wouldn't race on Saturday. And on a race week, you might only run hard on Tuesday. My point is you can still do 2 hard workouts a week. You just need the extra day. Beyond that, your training is almost exactly the same as when you were younger. Here's how it's different. You actually have to train correctly now as a masters. Masters running is a no mistake zone. The things you could do when you were young, which we all did every workout, the racing the last interval, the running if you were out to run your quarters at 70 seconds per 400 meters, and you ran them at 68 and patted yourself on the back for being fast, you can't do that as a masters runner. You can no longer push the envelope. You can no longer make the training mistakes and recover from them. You have to do everything at the right effort level for the right volume for the correct amount of times per week. If you do more than that, you don't get better. You get injured, you get sick, you get broken down.
And what if someone is listening now and they are feeling completely overwhelmed, like terrified? I'm going to end up injured. I don't want to make a single mistake. What would you say to them then?
I'd say you've got the right attitude. Now understand that if you don't do the variety of training I'm talking about, you will get injured. Because especially as a masters runner, when we were young, and we masters runners are young. So please, if you're out there, do not think that I am saying we are old now. We are not. we are showing what people are capable of doing in middle age and even in older age now. But when you were young, you naturally built muscle strength that you don't build anymore. Plus, we all had recess for years at school, where we used all of our muscles. We had better muscle balance. We had better all-around fitness. At this age, after being in careers, a lot of us have just been going out and doing easy runs, every day, whatever. We haven't built the muscle balance. We haven't built all of our systems to withstand, the intensity of a hard 5K. I always find it, I don't laugh because I really want everybody to do well, but I'm always kind of shaking my head when people run a 5K and they go, I'm sore. God, I ran a 5K 2 days ago and I'm just sore. I don't understand it. I've been running 30, 40 miles a week. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't train the parts of your body that you're going to use in the 5K. Unless you do all this training, you aren't ready to run a 5K and you're going to get injured. You're not going to have the right muscle balance. Your energy systems aren't going to be prepared to fuel the effort. Your connective tissue is not going to be strong enough to withstand the full beating that your legs are going to get in a 5K race. You have to strengthen all of this before you go into the race, or you're going to end up injured. So this is the way you don't get injured.
No, this is great. And what if someone then, what would be your argument then, just before people kind of start to head down a path of, what would be your argument for people who are thinking, well, I don't even know if I should, maybe I won't do a 5K. I don't know if I should do that. I'll just go to ultras because, they're more suited to me and they're not so high risk and I can just kind of plod along. What would be your argument to bring people back to the 5K?
Well, okay, first of all, if they're going to an ultra, they have a different mindset. So I might just let them go, because if they want to be in the hills for 50 to 100 miles, then maybe that's how they get their zen on. Here's the thing about 5K training. And this gets back to the whole build your running body concept that was the heart of my first book. Correctly training for a 5K correctly trains you for a half marathon. It correctly trains you for a marathon, except that you'll have to add a couple longer runs. Mm-hmm. Okay? There's this idea, again, that training for races is a distance-specific project. That if you're training for a 5K, it's this many miles. If you're training for a marathon, it's this many miles. That simply isn't true. Mm-hmm. A 5K is about 92 to 95% aerobic. Okay? Yep. Half marathon is about 98% aerobic. They're both over 90% aerobic. If you want to do well at a 5K, you have to train your aerobic system to 100% of what it's capable of accomplishing, of the adaptation for which it's capable. Okay? To do that, you have to run long runs, you have to run tempo, you have to run VO2 max work. Okay? You do the maximum amount of that, you develop your aerobic system to its maximum potential, you are now ready to run a 5K fast. Mm-hmm. Okay? You're also ready to run a half marathon fast. It's amazing to me how many people don't quite get the concept that what you're doing is preparing your body for a physiological challenge, not matching miles to race miles. When I had turned 50 and ran that 15:01, I also ran a 31:11 10K. And there's always a national distance ranking that comes out for age groups. And I had set the American records at both the 5K and 10K, and I didn't get ranked in my age 50 to 54 division. 17 guys got ranked, and I didn't get ranked. And I asked the person who was the head of the rankings, why am I not even ranked when I set the American records? How are there 17 Americans from last year who are better than me? And he said, because you can't run a half marathon. He said, you're a 5 and a 10K guy. All these guys are half marathoners, and they can run 5Ks too, and they would all beat you. I said, well, what was their fastest time? And he said, one of the guys ran a 1:14. I said, okay. And I went out 2 weeks later and ran 1:10:19. I got ranked number one the next year. It didn't surprise me. My point was, I knew the training that had prepared me for the 5 and 10K also prepared me for the half marathon. So here's what I'd say to people who are afraid of the intensity of 5K training. Hey, it's the same training you should be using for your half marathon. And if you're going to a marathon, it's very similar.
Nope, that's really helpful. And something that I think people wouldn't otherwise consider, but definitely, a great point and something that is absolutely true. I can attest to that too, that I've done 5K trainings and then gone on to a half marathon and surprised myself with how fast I've done it. So definitely agree with what Pete is saying there. And just one other thing related to that intensity, how do you runners kind of push themselves hard enough if they have that fear that they're going to get injured? Like when it matters, obviously not during easy runs or not, times that aren't appropriate. But what about in those hard days if people are fearful that it's going to lead to an injury?
Again, it's not a bad thing to have that fear as a masters runner. As a masters runner, you always have to take the edge off that upper intensity. A very good friend of mine, a guy named Nolan Shahid, he's a very famous masters runner. Mm-hmm. He ran a 4:25 mile at age 50, and he's 10 years older than me, and he was kind of my inspiration. He showed me when I was just coming in at 40, he showed me what could be done at 50. And a lot of us young guys and masters times have just gotten so much better over the past 10 years. I think because of, pioneers like Nolan, who showed that age wasn't the barrier we'd always thought it was. Nolan told me the secret to being a successful masters runner was always skipping the last repetition in an interval workout. Now, he didn't mean set out with going out to do 10 by 400 and only do 9. He meant if you're doing 10 by 400 and at 9, you've hit your marks and you're doing well, quit. Don't risk injury. And I would say the same thing. This is why I say, one of the huge mistakes, if not the number one mistake people training for the 5K make, is they train at 5K goal pace because they think if they magically run at 5K goal pace, they will somehow then on race day 2 months down the line be able to run that goal pace. And 5K goal pace is not the pace you should be training at today. Remember that when we're training 5K pace, we're really training VO2 max, what we talked about earlier. It's not actually about training 5K pace. It's about training this percentage of your VO2 max represented by your current 5K pace. So whatever you can run a 5K today is what you should be running your 5K pace in workouts. And if that's a lot slower than you want to run, okay. My point is, run that time you could run today and you won't be running too intensely. Okay, it's when we try to run beyond what we're capable of today, then do the minimum amount of work it takes today to get an adaptation for tomorrow. Training for the 5K and getting better is an incremental process. You can only make a tiny bit of improvement from day to day. So there's no reason to train beyond what it takes to make that tiny improvement. And can I put in one other thing here? Because this is so important for masters runners. When you train, you take your fitness that you have today for a hard workout, not for an easy distance run, but for a hard workout. You take your fitness that you have today, and let's say your workout is 6 times 3 minutes on the road at 5K effort, which would be a good 5K workout, a good VO2 max workout. When you finish that workout, you will have broken down muscle tissue, beaten up your connective tissue, depleted your fuel supplies, fatigued your nervous system. You are no longer as good a runner at the end of the workout as you were before the workout started. And you have to recover from that. Okay, so you take a day off to recover, or an easy day. You go out and you run easy distance. And then 2 days later, you're like, hey, I feel as good as I did before that hard workout. I'm ready to go again. This is another huge mistake because recovering isn't the goal. Recovering back to where you were before the first hard workout is not your goal. There's a second part of recovery called supercompensation. That's where your body rebuilds a little stronger than it was before the workout. That's why we as masters runners need that extra day. A lot of masters runners will work out hard on Monday, and by Wednesday, they're like, I feel ready to go again. Yes, you do. You're just as good as you were before you ran the last workout. And if you do another hard workout now, you will never get any better than you were before that.
That's a good point.
You have to add that extra day to get the supercompensation. Young people do this quicker than we do. The first day they recover. By the second day, they've supercompensated and they're ready to go. For us older runners, we need that extra day to supercompensate. I always say feeling good is not a green light to go harder.
So would you say the day that someone feels good, take one more day on top of that and then that's okay?
Yeah, okay. I would definitely say that. I would always say, and this goes back to your people who are scared of getting injured, just train correctly and you won't. Don't ever train harder than you're ready for on that day. Okay. Don't train longer than you have to train to get the adaptation you're looking for, and give yourself that extra day to get a little bit better. You aren't going to slide back. You're going to do just fine. Yeah. Trust me. This is how I train. This is how my runners train. This is how the guys on my team train. When I turned 50 and ran 15:01, I had 5 other 50-year-olds on my team who broke 16 minutes for 5K that year. It's not impossible to run fast. It's impossible to run fast if you train incorrectly.
Okay. So then just to be devil's advocate, you said about you and your team, and that's great. And what about someone who's saying, well, you're just the exception to the rule. Like I can't do that. And I'll never run anywhere close to you. So maybe I can train a little bit differently.
Well, you may not run close to me. There are 2 other people in the history of the world who have run close to me at age 50 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So forget about that. That just means that in top shape, I'm capable of running faster. It doesn't mean that the physiology that underlies my ability to improve is any different from yours or anyone else's. I train my 25-minute 5K runners the same way I train my 15-minute 5K runners. We all have the same underlying physiology. Our muscles act the same. Our connective tissue acts the same. Our nervous system recovers the same. Yes, my muscles and connective tissue and my biomechanics for running are innately a little bit better. The first day I ever ran when I was 14 years old, showing up for high school practice in summer back in 1975, never having run over a mile in my life, I did 5 miles with the varsity guys and ran varsity my freshman year. Deal with it. I can do that. Mm-hmm. Deal with this. Your physiology is the same. Don't discount what I'm telling you just because I'm faster, okay? Or because some of the guys on my team were faster. Because the physiology that will get you to your fastest is the same. When I go out completely out of shape, I start at about 18 minutes for a 5K. I get down about 3 minutes to 15 minutes. Wherever you're starting, you can take that same amount off your 5K by training smart.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's maybe give some specific examples of, you said about the tempo runs, you said about doing the VO2 max work and running under pace. But for someone listening who is thinking, okay, you're saying train smart, what does that mean? What workouts should I be doing?
Right, and that's a very good question. And here's a very safe workout scheme that anyone can use. It's cliche, and people are always looking for that special secret, super secret, runners training program that will get them there faster, better than ever. But it really comes down to this. On Monday, do a VO2 max workout.
What would be an example of a VO2 max workout?
VO2 max is, once again, I'm using a sciencey term, which luckily for all of us basically means 5K effort.
Yep.
Okay. VO2 max is actually about 3K effort, but training at you don't have to train at 100% to get 100% benefit. Mm-hmm. So 5K effort intervals, do a little progression. I always have my athletes do a progression. We do 8 times 1 minute the first week. We do 8 times 2 minutes the second week. We go 6 times 3 minutes after that. We go 4 times 4 minutes the week after that. 5 times 4 minutes the week after that. And if you're super strong and ready to do another one, we might go 4 times 5 minutes. If there is a secret about VO2 max workouts, it's that it takes your body about the first 2 minutes to get up to 100% of the VO2 max production you're going to get. Okay. So the workouts become very valuable by the time you get to the 6 times 3 minutes, 4 times 4 minutes. The first couple of weeks, 8 times 1, 8 times 2, that's strengthening your muscle and your connective tissue so you can actually handle the longer run. Don't go out and do 6 times 3. Pete said the first 2 minutes don't count, so I'm going to start with 3 minutes. No, strengthen your body first before you start worrying about improving your VO2 max. Too many runners want to get there today. You will not get there today. It's going to take time. Mm-hmm. So that would be a VO2 max day. Tempo day on Thursday. Start with 10 minutes at what feels like a half marathon pace. The next week, go out and do 15 minutes at what feels like half marathon pace. I'm going to tell you, I do tempo runs and I run half marathon pace and I work them up to 20 minutes. I split them into 10-minute intervals, even at half marathon pace. You know why? Because after the first 10 minutes, I can stop for a 2-minute easy jog recovery and ask myself, okay, Pete, are you running tempo or are you pushing it?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you're out here. We all were taught, that you should be exhausted at the end of a workout. Tempo is not exhausting. And we all tend to push it just a little too fast. So I take that break. So then Thursday, do your tempo run. Saturday, guess what? Long run. Do your long run. For 5K, you want to do a long run of about 90 to 120 minutes. The long run has some special benefits that, you want to work up to that. Obviously, do not start at 90 to 120 minutes. Special things happen at 90 minutes with your body. Your slow twitch fibers that you've been using begin to run out of muscle glycogen, and you recruit even more slow twitch fibers. It also teaches your body how to burn fat. You get more efficient at burning fat. It also teaches your nervous system how to generate that stride better. By going and going and going, your nervous system gets much more efficient at just generating your stride. So those are your 3 basic workouts. As you get more into it, you take sometimes instead of doing VO2 max and tempo, you might go tempo on Monday and throw in some long hill repeats on Thursday to mix it up. Maybe once every 3 to 4 weeks, you'd mix it up like that. That's all you have to do. And here's the other thing. Keep doing it. Don't go out 3 weeks after you started and go, oh, my 5K hasn't dropped. Don't go out 8 weeks after you've started and go, oh, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Keep it going. Think 3 months down the line. Think 6 months down the line. It's amazing the strides you can make just by getting out there every day and doing your workouts and doing them consistently.
So if someone was going to say, I'm going to do 5K for a season, be it 3 months, be it 6 months, as you just mentioned, how often should someone be racing a 5K, like in training? And should there be one ultimate 5K that you shoot for at the end? Or should it be just kind of along the way, you're just racing and one of them will probably click and, it's not necessarily at the end of the season, but how do you tell people to approach the actual selecting the races?
Well, you just hit something I'd forgotten to talk about for Masters runners that is key for Masters racing. Masters runners should shoot for racing when they're in shape and whenever it happens. Okay. I know that sounds like open-ended to a point where it's completely useless. Start out with the idea that it's going to take you 3 months to get into decent shape. Okay. It's going to take 3 months of base done correctly to get you anywhere near, race fitness. Then definitely don't expect to run your fastest right off the bat. The first thing you're going to have to do is teach your brain that you can run a fast 5K without killing yourself, which is, it's part of the brain training, part of the whole central governor theory from Tim Noakes. Your first race out, you are not going to run your best for all sorts of reasons. After that, my suggestion is don't race every week. Good grief, we Masters runners can't recover from a race every week. And as we talked earlier about the amount of time it takes to recover, you won't get better if you try to race every week. You will always be in recovery mode and you will never get to super compensation mode. So if you run a 5K, make sure to take at least 2 weeks before you race again. If you run a longer race, make sure at least 3 weeks. I would suggest if you want to run your best 5K, start with a 5K, then run a 10K. Then see if you can't find a track race where you can run a 1500. If you can't find a track race, run a 1500 time trial. Go above and below your race distances. Give yourself a chance. Then keep racing. You will find your fitness coming to you. You cannot predict it as a Masters runner the way we could when we were younger and you would peak for a simple race. And this isn't just something I say. This is something that you'll hear from all successful masters runners.
Yeah.
Is that fitness will suddenly come. It will sometimes come when you least expect it. Race then and go for your PRs then.
Okay, great. Really helpful. All right. So you mentioned it just a second ago. The final thing I wanted to ask you about was runners who maybe have taken an extended break off like you did, or have never left the sport. But either way, it's difficult not to compare yourself as you are a masters runner to that younger version of yourself. What advice would you give people to make sure that they're focusing on the now? Do you believe in age group grading to help, or what do you suggest for people to stop looking back on what they used to do?
When I was 40, I hated age grading. Age grading, for anyone who doesn't know, it takes your current performance and it adjusts it based on what you could probably have run when you were younger, and it gives it in a percentage. If I get a 90, if I ran 15 minutes at age 25, my age graded performance would probably have been, I don't know, around 88 or 89% or something. At age 50, it gives me about a 97%. The higher your age grading performance is, the better you're running now. And a lot of runners judge their performances by how their age grading goes from one year to the next. When I was 40, I hated age grading because I thought you get into these masters races and they a lot of times are scored by age grading, and the 50-year-olds and the 60-year-olds are always kicking my butt. Now that I'm 55, I love it because it works so well for me. No, age grading is wonderful because it gives you a percentage of your maximum performance that you can look at from year to year. So I think it's great. It also gives you a way to compare yourself to everyone else in masters. Mm-hmm. If I run a 95% and Catherine Martin, who's 10 years my senior and running in the women's side, runs a 95%, we high five and congratulate each other on equivalent races afterwards. But that's a trick. And it's not a trick that every masters runner will buy into. You just have to run for what you can do now. Here's the good part. Running slower when you're running all out feels the same as it did running faster when we were younger. You feel like you're flying, okay? You will still get the same rush. You will still have the same competitive fun. You will adjust, deal with age groups, race the people who are your age groups. You'll get the same competitive juices going. You'll get the same camaraderie going with your peers. And always keep in the back of your mind, if I wasn't doing this, how slow would I be? How unfit would I be? Because I can tell you, having come into masters the way I did, the fitness I had at age 39 was nowhere near the fitness I now have at age 56. Mm-hmm. I would not trade my 56-year-old body for my 39-year-old body ever. At 39, I woke up every morning wondering if I was going to live through the day. At 56, I wake up wondering how I can possibly fit all the things I have to do into one day, including my workouts. You do it because, A, you're going to get older anyway. This is a way to stay fitter, to stay in a sport you love. I guarantee you it will feel fast. The competition will be fun. You'll have to deal with some things like injuries. Injuries come more often, even when you train smart, and they take longer to recover from. But again, what's your option? Mm-hmm. You can still have the funnest time of your life. I have never had more fun as a runner than I have over the past decade and a half. I've never made better running friends than the new friends I've made over the past decade and a half. It's a marvelous world. It's all-embracing sport. We love our peers because at this age, we recognize there is no sport without our competition. You aren't the enemy. Please come join us. Fast or slow, the race is the same. Whether when I finish at 15 minutes and you finish at 30 minutes, we both ran the same course. We both experienced the same things. I can hardly wait to, high five and talk about our races afterwards. Come join us.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Pete. That was just a great way to kind of round it up there. And I hope everyone listening is kind of thinking about this. And if you've purchased this series, then you obviously are curious. But Pete is exactly right. The 5K is a wonderful distance. And I hope that you have learned a lot today from Pete. And Pete, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. Really, really good advice. And I appreciate it so much. So maybe tell the listeners where they can kind of find out more about you and what things you'll be including in the PDF to go along with this series that will help runners.
Well, you can always go to my website, petemagill.com. That's the easiest way to get access to me, to the Build Your Running Body, links to Build Your Running Body, Born Again Runner, to my 25 keys to running a faster 5K. It's a Kindle short that's available. And I will also put a link to the information that you will be providing.
Yeah, great.
PDF.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This was wonderful. And I look forward to hearing how many of our listeners have tried the 5K, loved the 5K, and they're just happier than ever in it. So thank you.
Yeah, the 5K, one last thing. 5K, it's your gateway to a world of running.
Love that.
Try it.
Warmer weather is starting to get us, and even though we've forgotten all about those bad sides of it in our daydreams about the summer, the sweat pours down your face in those first few months. Well, it does for me. It used to drive me absolutely crazy when I would get a bead of sweat inside my earbuds. How I got in there, I don't know. And it would block the sound. I would try and get the sweat out, just the one drop. I would try and dry it, but you're already soaked and it just didn't work. But with aftershocks, you don't have to worry about that because they sit outside your ear and conduct the sound through bone conduction technology. Sounds intense, but it's ideal, especially this time of year when you're still adjusting to running outside without 3 million layers on. That being said, these can handle any weather conditions. Aftershocks have wide dynamic sound range, deep bass and dual noise cancelling mics. You can hear your music or podcast clearly and even have phone calls. I've tested that out too and left them on for a while I pretty much forgot that they were there. You can get $50 off Trex Air or Trex Titanium Endurance Bundle at tina.aftershocks.com. That's tina.aftershokz.com. I absolutely love mine and I have a feeling you will too. Thank you to Noonie for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I've mentioned last month that I've never actually had any knee issues, but I know many of you had. So I offered to send it out to a few superstars and Noonie were happy to oblige and they gave it a try. So I'm not going to tell you what I think because I haven't used it. I never have really struggled with knee issues. But Kate said it worked really well. I kept expecting the pain to creep in as I went longer, but it didn't. Erin said I used it for about a week, did a short recovery run without it, and I did feel the knee pain creep back in. And Michelle says, I have worn Noonie for 4 runs now. It definitely makes a difference. The first time I thought it wouldn't do anything because it just didn't feel like it would be. But I was able to run completely with no pain. When I took the brace off, I did have some pain in the knee, so I know it was helping. Now, if you're wondering what Noonie is, it's an innovative new product designed to provide immediate relief of runner's knee symptoms. Elite athletes use it, recreational runners use it, and even running injury specialist Dr. Ben Chateau prescribes it to his runners. Knee pain can be debilitating, so let Noonie get you back to your running schedule and stop that runner's knee. Go to noonieshop.com and use promo code TinaMuir for 20% off. That's NUNEESHOP.com and use code TINAMUIR for 20% off. My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. I hope that episode made it clear that you can focus on the 5K, you can run fast as a master, and you don't have to be a marathoner to be a real runner or race marathons to be a real runner. Pete has some seriously good advice, and I think we can all learn from what he told us in that episode. I'm sorry I never got that to you in a series as it was supposed to be, but really you probably prefer it this way. It's better late than never, right? I have a bonus episode coming to you on Monday, so be sure you are subscribed to get that episode. You will not want to miss it. There are links to everything we talked about today in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 112. And next week we will be having part 2 of my conversation with Evie Saventi, my sports psychologist, to answer your questions. And if you had a rough race recently, you do not want to miss this. We'll go over that and many more of the things we struggle with mentally. We'll help you get over those bad races and get back to believing in you. Until then, have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.